Video, I will share with you how to use the AP dashboard that I sell on Etsy and also on my website. So if you purchase this item on my website, it's a little bit cheaper and you get 10% discount. So check out the link in the description if you're interested. So this is the accounts payable dashboard that I built, and I built this mainly for small business owners so that they can track their accounts payable, and then also track their vendor and the PO and invoices as well. And so having this AP dashboard is very helpful because it gives you a 360-degree view of your spending, and it can help you stop guessing and start planning for your cash flow. Because accounts payable is cash going out, right? So you're paying your vendor and you're trying to see if you have enough cash flow to pay your vendors. And it also helps you save money as well. So it can tell you here on this dashboard whether you have captured a discount. So a vendor gives you a discount. Sometimes they give you a discount you pay within certain days. So it can help you tell you if you captured those discounts or did you miss those discounts or whether there's discounts available, right? And then it also tells you your top five vendors that you have money outstanding that you need to pay, and then top five vendors by purchases. And here it tells you the invoices that you have goods that you received but you haven't received the invoice to pay for those goods yet, right? So those invoices are pending. And then you have here the aging analysis where it tells you what bucket of your outstanding balance falls into, whether it's current 1 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, or 90 plus days, right? And here on the right, you can see live data as of today. So here it tells you what your projected cash outflow is for the next 7 days or next 30 days. So these are invoices that are upcoming that you need to pay out, right? So you can see what your projected cash outflow is like. So here you can select any of the month that you want, and then you can select all the months as well, and then any year. So if you select any of the months here, it will show you data for that month. If you select everything, so it's like all the months, to show you data for the entire year as well. Okay, so that's pretty cool about this dashboard. So let's walk through all the tabs that you get when you purchase this item, and then we'll do an example so you can see how the information flow. And if this looks like something that interests you, please check it out. Okay, so if you purchase this item, it will come with 10 tabs, and it works in Excel and Google Sheet. So the first tab is a days payable outstanding. It's pretty much explain what that metric is. So you could read it and try to read it and understand how the template uses the formula, or what formula it uses to calculate that information and what it means. And then you have a start here tab, which is like instructions to tell you how to enter information and what each tab does. And then step one here is basically where you can set up your drop down menu for your other tabs, like the vendor database tab and the PO tab. And here you can put your company name, and then it'll flow to the AP aging report. Okay, and then the vendor database is where you set up all your vendor information, like their vendor name, vendor ID, the contact information, website, and then you can um, fill in the financial and billing information like payment term, payment method, credit limit, tax ID, EIN. And then you have account and relationship management, like what's account status, right? You can fill this out. And then vendor information evaluation, how's the vendor doing? Do you like the vendor? Do you want to continue with the vendor? And then the compliance, whether you have the contract signed, when it starts. And then you have a location where you can save the link so you can find the data quickly, or the files quickly. And then you can add comments as well. So you can fill out as much information as you need for each vendor so you can track their information, right? So you have a handy. And then step three, the PO here is where you set up the purchase order. So purchase order is basically a form or an agreement that you give to a vendor that says, hey, I want to buy these amount of goods from you, right? And so once you give them the purchase order, they'll have the goods, they'll create the goods, and then they'll send you the goods, and then they'll give you an invoice, right? So the first step is always have a purchase order, but you don't have to have a purchase order. Sometimes, you just get an invoice. But if you are a business owner who uses purchase order, you can log all your purchase order here. so you can track all of your purchase order. And then once you log the information, the invoice information for the purchase order, this section here will automatically populate and match the invoice to the purchase order. So it's pretty neat. And then the AP tracker is basically the heart of this template. So this is where it tracks all the invoices, the PO information. You can put PO information you want, but it's not required. But you need to have an invoice so that it tracks all the invoice information, the invoice status, interest, or other payments that you need to pay because, if an invoice overdue. And then discount terms, like if you get discounts from your vendor and you pay within certain days, then it also tracks the discount terms for you and how much money you save. And then the payment, you can log the payment details as well. And then here you can see the payment progress. So as you enter information for that invoice, it'll tell you the payment progress, whether it's paid, partially paid, or unpaid. So all this gray cell here, it'll automatically populate. You just need to update the white cell. So you can see here the payment progress and agent automatically calculate that for you. So it'll calculate the payment status, the days past due. So if an invoice has a negative date, that just means that it's current, it's not due yet. If it has a positive date, it means that it's overdue. And it automatically put it into an aging bucket, whether it's paid, 31 to 60 days, current, 90 plus days, or 61 to 90 days. So it's very cool. And then here, this last section here, you can put any notes that you want, and then this is automatically populated. And then the aging reports, after you fill in your data, then you can just come here. If you're using this in Excel, all you have to do is just refresh the pivot table and it'll create this report for you. It'll automatically organize everything in its appropriate aging bucket, and all you can do is highlight this section and print it out. Okay. And then the vendor search is you can search any of the vendor that you have put in the vendor database, and then as you select that vendor, the information for that vendor will automatically populate, right? The payment detail, financial summary, goods received, pending invoice. So these are, again, you received the goods, but you haven't received the invoice, and automatically show you the pending balance for that vendor, and also it puts the amount in the correct aging bucket for that vendor, and then also the PO information for that vendor as well. So it has very good information. It's like a system that you can come here and check your vendor information as well, so it's very neat. And then the PO search, so as I mentioned before, a PO can have multiple invoices, right? So here you can come here and look at search any PO, right, to see, okay, how many invoices I received for that PO, and what is that PO amount that I issue, and how much of those amount has been used up, and what's the remaining balance, right? So as you can see, if I selected another PO, you can see there's 2 invoices attached to this PO, so it's pretty cool. And then again, the last thing is the AP dashboard. So once you fill out all the information, you can come here and make your selection, and then data will populate for that selection that you just selected. All right, so I went through all the tabs, so now let's go and do an example so you can see how the data flow. All right, so step 1 is where we start off. So this is where you start when you get the template. So just make sure that all the drop-down menu are to your liking. If you want to make any changes, you can. So let me show you an example. So for example, vendor type, if we add sample here, it will be part of the drop-down menu on the vendor database. So we go to the vendor database and we go, here's the drop-down menu. It will be part of the sample will be part of the drop-down menu. All right. So I'll just remove it because I'm just showing you this as an example. So I'm not going to make any changes, but when you get this template, you can make that change. And just make sure to add your company name so that this information can automatically flow to the aging report, and then you can print it out. All right. So the next step is to go to vendor database and set up all your vendors. So here you can set up all of your vendors. I'm not going to set up the vendor because it does take quite a bit of time. But it's pretty self-explanatory. You just set up the vendor information as you have it on this white cell. So after you set up your vendor information, then you can move on to the PO, right? So let's say you have a PO, and if you are a business owner or small business owner that does not track PO, then you don't need to fill this out. But if you do have PO and you track those, you can fill it out here. So let's say I issue a PO to ABC Company. So let's say I pick ABC Company. You'll notice the data for ABC Company, or the vendor information for ABC Company that I set up for ABC Supply Co. will automatically populate here. So I can pick any company or vendor name, right? You can see it's automatically, the vendor information will automatically pop up for that vendor. And this information comes from the vendor database. So that's why it's important to fill out the vendor database first before you fill out the purchase order. All right. So let's say I issue a purchase order to Nova IT Supplies or Services. So let's say we'll do an example here. So I'll do one. Let's say 6569. Okay. Just make sure. And again, like a PO can have multiple invoices. So let's say we receive it on 7/1/2025. So let's say PO is 275,000, or the PO date is 7/1. And let's say it's open, the status is open. And if you don't like the status here, just make sure you can change it in the setup, okay? Date received, let's say we receive on 7/21/25, but we haven't received the invoice for it yet, right? So let's say the good is $75,000, and as you can see, it says awaiting invoice because we haven't linked any invoice to this PO, right? And once you link the invoice to a PO, this here will automatically populate, right? It'll tell you the total number of invoices that are linked to a purchase order. And again, a purchase order can have multiple invoices. You can have 10 invoices or just one invoice, right? So it'll give you the count of the invoice that's linked to this purchase order, the total invoice amount, the latest date that's paid, the balance due, and then it'll tell you what the remaining balance for that PO is. Okay. All right, so now we can go to the step 4, which is the AP tracker, which is the heart of the template. And here we can log the invoice when it comes, right? So let's say Nova IT Services, I got the invoice for them. So let's say I'll go find them here. So I'll just log them as a vendor here. And then you see all the vendor information for them popped up again. And then I'll just log a invoice number. So please note that an invoice must have a unique ID. So each invoice must have their own row, okay? But a PO, it doesn't have to be unique here because, as I mentioned, a PO can have multiple invoices. So the PO number can be duplicated, but the invoice number, they have to be unique, right? Okay, so what is the PO we have? We have a 6569. 6569. You want to make sure the PO matches the PO that you set up here, because this here is looking at the PO number to match the invoice. So as you can see, once I put the invoice and the PO, it automatically knows there's one invoice here, right? And then let's say the invoice date is 7/22/25 and it's due on 7/30, similar to this one above. Okay. And then we receive it in 7/22/25, and then the invoice amount is for 75,000. And if you have any interest or fees that you need to pay because it's overdue, then you can put it here. So you can put 6,000, it will automatically add it up, right? But because this invoice not due yet, then we don't need to add any interest or fees there. And then if you have the if your company goes through a process where there's an invoice approval and whatnot, then you can fill out this piece here. But if you don't, then you can skip it, right? So let's say that there's a discount for this invoice, or this vendor offer a discount. Let's say they offer 3% if you pay within 2 days, right? So as you can see here, within 2 days of invoice date is 7/24. So you have to pay it within 2 days to get the discount, right? So 3% of this is about 2,250. Okay, so let's say we pay it on 7/24. 2025, and we're going to pay the balance amount, right? Because instead of paying 75,000, we're just gonna pay 72,750 because it's captured, right? Because we get the discount, we're paying it within the discount due date. All right, so then it's 100% paid, so automatically it says it's 100% paid. and then you don't have any days past due, and there's your aging. You don't. It doesn't have an aging bucket because it's already paid, right? All right. So and then you go to aging report. After you fill out all of your data, you can come here and refresh this pivot table. You just right click on any of the cell in the pivot table and then just hit refresh, and it automatically refreshes if there's new data. If there's no data, then it'll just look the same, right? And then you can just print it out. And then vendor search, as I mentioned, same thing. After you fill in your data, you can come here and look at the data for this for the vendor. So all the related information to that vendor will show up. And PO search is same thing, right? It will show you what the invoice that matches that PO will show up here, right? So it will show you any invoice or information related to that PO. Okay. All right. And then the AP dashboard here, it will automatically populate as well after you fill out the data. So that's basically how the AP dashboard tracker works. So it's pretty neat. It can help you keep your business organized and stay on top of all of your vendor payments. So if this is something that interests you, please check out the link in the description, and you can purchase this item on Etsy or on my website. So thank you so much for watching.